Thank you so much, and welcome to another edition of our Arts Strong series. At this time, we are looking forward to sharing the dance and just wonderful talents of Miss Elisa Reed. Share in this moment, and let's watch her at work.
Thank you, 505. Go.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, at this time, help me welcome to the stage our guest artist today, Miss Elisa Reed.
Hello.
Oh my goodness, Elisa, we are just so excited to have you here today.
Thank you.
To get us started, why don't you tell our audience a little bit about where you're from and where you are now, and just kind of a little bit of the start of your journey.
Okay, so can y'all hear me? All right. I was born in Phoenix, Arizona. I lived there through high school, and I thought I was going to be a bio major. And then a wonderful woman came into my life, and I took her hip hop class, and then she was like, "You should try modern." I was like, "Oh, that sounds really dumb. I don't want to be a tree. That's so stupid." And then I took the class, and I was like, "I'm in love. This is all I want to do for the rest of my life." So I started dancing, and then I danced, and I danced, and I danced, and then I went to a school in Seattle, Washington with Miss Gorbity. And then after that, I went to Chicago and danced there. I went to Indianapolis and danced there. I came back to Phoenix, joined a dance theater company where I started to learn how to do aerial. And that was one of those things where I saw it, I knew that they did it, and I was like, I can do that. And she's like, "Have you done that before?" I said, "No, but I'm gonna learn." So then I learned. And I performed with them internationally. We went overseas a few times. We performed at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival and in England. It was such a wild ride. And then I came and lived here for a year, and I was teaching at Velocity and doing all sorts of other things. And then I moved back to Phoenix to be with family, and then I went to grad school. And that was the first aerial performance that they have ever let be on stage at ASU. When I got there, they said, "We don't do aerial." And then you saw what happened. I am extremely tenacious and stubborn when it comes to my abilities and what I know I can do. And then you just gotta find people who support you to do that. So it's basically, and now I'm living in Flagstaff, teaching at a performing arts high school. And I just moved there. It was very quick. And now I'm a teacher there.
That's awesome. You are a lady in demand, definitely. And I know that that opportunity came about real fast, and I think that is a result of, you know, as you say, these other people starting to see your abilities and want you to be a part of what they're doing. I think that's such a compliment and a beautiful thing.
So basically, let me just tell you how fast that was. I was on Friday. I got a text message from a friend, and she said, "Put your resume into this school. They need a teacher like right now." And I was like, okay, because during the pandemic, it's been like not great for dance. Got to be honest. I still performed, but it was a real struggle. And so even with a master's degree, it was like I was like, when am I going to get hired? When am I going to get a job? This is crazy. But then it was interview Monday, hired Wednesday, moved in 2 weeks, started teaching the Monday after I moved, and made it happen. So I've been there for about a month, and they love me and they want me to stay, but we'll see.
That is wonderful. That is wonderful. You know, you said something earlier about knowing your abilities and then finding people to support you as you pursue those. And I think this is a perfect example of that. That you had a journey that might have taken a little bit longer than you were hoping for. Certainly a lot of artists have gone through that in the midst of the pandemic. And yet you remained very committed. Your fortitude was strong. And now you have this wonderful opportunity, which is just what an inspiration for all of us.
Yeah, it just happened, thank you. And it just kind of happened. And sometimes you want things to happen really fast and you want them to happen now. And that's generally how I work. I'm like, I want it to happen now. But the time that I was able to have in between graduating with my master's and then actually getting a job, I was really able to settle into myself and remember, like, I feel like if I would have done everything that was on my plate right before we went into lockdown, I don't know what, I might have actually hurt myself pretty badly because I was overcommitted. And then I had to pull myself back and then remember how to take care of myself and really invest into my mental health and my physical health. I was doing a lot of yoga. I was doing a lot of meditation because I had time. And then when the opportunity came, I was able to jump on it because I was ready. I was like, okay, let's go. Whereas some people were like, I don't want to do this anymore. I was like, let's go, bring me, here we go.
I can't help but think about this. We have a very integrated approach to our arts here at Chalmette High. And every single artist that we've had on the show so far has this very prevalent practice of yoga in their lives. And I love hearing that because it's affirmation to what we've built into our curriculum as well. And I'm glad to hear that. I want to talk, if that's okay, a little bit about this piece. In the audience today and in our program, our arts program here at Chalmette High, we are really into the idea that music and dance and theater all overlap. And then the technical arts come out of that and support it as well. This was a collaboration. This work that we just watched was a collaboration between you and a doctoral student, a doctoral student in dance or somewhere else?
Music.
In music. So it was an original composition of music and an original composition of choreography. You were the choreographer.
Yes. So, so this is kind of how that went about. This piece was called Five of Cups. And so basically when you go to grad school, if you decide to go to grad school for art, you can no longer just make art because you feel like making art. You then have to be able to write, describe, and tell people why you're making this art, where you've seen certain things before, what the symbolism means, if there is any, or your processes, your methodologies, everything. You have to justify everything, which was like the most annoying part about grad school for me, because I just want to make art. I just want to make it. I don't want to explain it. But I understand why they have forced us to do that now.
And just to interrupt, I mean, isn't that great that we now know all the reasons why we spend so much time on that here in school, right? Are we just dancing to dance? Are we just singing to sing? Or is there a message? Is there something to communicate? What is the deeper meaning? Keep going.
All right, so it's called the Five of Cups. I was getting really into archetypes and the symbolism behind the tarot. And so that's what I did my entire thesis on, was based like using the tarot because it's like this whole fool's journey situation if you ever look into it. I know New Orleans has usually there's people reading cards in the square, which I might be one of them next summer, we'll see. Anyway, so this particular card is about having 5 cups, and 2 of them are spilt, or you have 3 of them are spilt over, and 2 of them are full. And so basically this card is like you're focusing on the spilt cups, you're not focusing on the full cups. And so at the time I was going through a divorce, and I just really, I couldn't see the forest for the trees. I couldn't understand why the things that were happening in my life were happening, and I was focusing too much on what I lost instead of what I still had. And trust me, I still had lots of things, but I just couldn't see it. I couldn't focus on it because I was so emotionally invested in the marriage, and then it was like done, and then it was like, okay. So I wanted to make a piece where I was reflecting that, I was thinking about that symbolism, and I was creating that. And then I had this idea. I approached a doctoral student, and she was her name's Ashley Bush. I don't know if she's graduated yet. Those doctoral programs, you can take up to 7 years to graduate. Right. MFA is 3. So I think she's done. Anyway, we just set up in the studio, kind of like this situation, and I was like, can you just improvise something, and I'm gonna improvise something, and we're just gonna like vibe. It was like a jam session for like, if you've ever like been in a band or something like that, you just start playing, and then you're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do this now, and we did that. I recorded it, and then I sent it to her, and she's like, wow, I actually came up with something I like. And I was like, I actually came up with things I like too, so can we like keep doing this until we can put it in a performance? And so that's what we did.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful. And on that, emotional journey as well as artistic journey, did you eventually get to the point where you were focusing on what you had instead of what you'd lost?
Absolutely. It took a while though. I mean, I had to, once I realized that I could just throw myself into my art and everything else kind of just faded away when I was working on that, I was able to really focus on the cool things I was able to do. I made I'm patting myself on the back right now, but my thesis was so beautiful, and it was because I really just focused in and was like, I want to make all these things, and I had when you're in grad school or in undergrad, you have a team of people that are helping you make the show. So like just like here, you have a team of people, you got your tech people, and I had like all sorts of things coming down. I had like petals coming down from the ceiling. I had gold confetti coming down at one point. Like it was just, and I was able to sit and imagine, because I kind of really did want to escape a little bit from the situation. But then I was able to come back refreshed because I had that time away from the reality of what was going on in my life. And then the pandemic hit. So I was able to get my performance in right before, and I was so lucky.
I'm so glad.
Yeah, me too.
So glad. My goodness. Your thesis was a performance, or your thesis had a written component as well?
It was both.
It was both.
So
okay.
It was, oh God. It was a large endeavor. It was an aerial dance theater work. So part of my thesis was teaching dancers or non-aerialists how to fly for this particular show, and I started maybe 11 months before rehearsing with this group. And then, I mean, every piece in there came from symbolism from the tarot. So then I had to go back and write this huge document talking about my methods, how I came to create this thing, what the journey was, why it was important. You have to write down everything, and then it has to be approved to be published. So you have to take this document that you blood, sweat, and tears, and then you give it to somebody, and then they go through it and say, you need to do this, 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 you need to expand on this, you need to cut this out, all of that, and then, yeah. So once you finish that and it's been approved, then you get to graduate.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And I think that's important for us to realize too, that if a student decides to continue with an academic, artistic journey, that these kinds of monumental performance and written works come together, and that's part of how you grow into this place of professionalism. Let's talk real quick about you as an aerial dancer.
Okay.
So once upon a time you were a dancer on the ground, and now you're a dancer in the air. Tell us about that.
Well, I like to combine the two things.
Yes.
I don't know if you noticed in the piece I was on the floor, and then I was experimenting with how I could get up to the apparatus without just like walking up to it and being like, right now I'm dancing on this. Like it was really important for me to learn about that transitional space in between the floor and in flight. So I've done all sorts of kinds of performances with aerial, with the dance company, and then a little bit of gig work, but that's not necessarily my favorite. It's probably the most lucrative, but I don't really like the gig work version of aerial. It's just not as artistically
pleasing,
fulfilling as actually creating an art. I feel like it's more like entertainment performance, which is great, and I love that. And I think anything that goes on stage should be entertaining to some degree, or like make you feel something,
Right.
I don't, So, so just training in aerial. I feel like sometimes like I was not doing aerial at all, and then I was really focusing on aerial if there was a show that needed that kind of performance. And so it's been back and forth, and I've been in a balancing act, because I don't want to let go of. A lot of people who just fly tend to start losing their dance technique because they haven't been on the floor, and then they get down on the floor and they're like, oh, I don't know how to move anymore. And that was I never wanted that for me. I wanted to be able to do both and feel confident in both.
And you show those transitions well, certainly in this work.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes. But how did you find the opportunity or the interest in aerial?
Well, I started dancing for that company, and I knew that they have this vampire show every year called A Vampire Tale. And there were a couple parts that were aerial, and I was like, I want to be that chick up there. That's what I want. And then I had to prove that I was able to do it, and I had to train really fast. And then I ended up being in the next year's show on the Lyra with somebody else, and then there's a Silks piece that was very, if you can imagine, so there's like, we were like dancing vampires, like flying vampires kind of situation. And then there was an innocent person that we are like luring into our clan, and we want to kill her off and make her a vampire, and the lead character doesn't want to. So,
Very good.
yeah, it's fun. I mean, it was all very theater-based.
Right.
So it was not circus-based. And I had a stint with flying trapeze there for a little bit, and I thought I was advancing really quickly, and then I got an injury, and I was like, do I want to dance and fly, or do I want to do flying trapeze? And I was like, this isn't worth it to me. I want to keep dancing. So there was going to be points where you experiment with things, and then you're like, is this worth all of my energy? Or do I want to go back to the things that I really love and I want to do for the rest of my life? And yeah.
Awesome. Well, as we get ready to conclude this part of our conversation,
Okay.
we are so glad to have you on campus. And you're here to do a masterclass
Yes.
with our contemporary dancers. And
Yes.
I know they're looking forward to that a lot. Do you have any thoughts that you'd like to share with our high school artists as they kind of think about where they are now, where they want to go, etc.?
I have had so many magical experiences that I wouldn't have had I not been a dancer. That being said, if you don't actually really want it, it's never going to come to you. Nothing is ever just handed over. You have to work so hard and be diligent and keep going, even though you think it is dire. If you want it, you have to go get it for yourself. There is nobody that will just call you out of the blue and say, hey, do you want to be a dancer? That's not happening. You have to go to the classes, you have to go to the auditions, you have to do all those things, and the world is changing a lot. And so you actually have to change what you think success is. So during the pandemic especially, I was doing a lot of film, I was doing outdoor performances, I was doing performances in non-traditional spaces, and so you really have to be very adaptable and say, yes, I want that, yes, if you really want it. If you don't want it, do something else.
That's a beautiful idea. And I just zoned in on the idea maybe of being open to the definition of success might end up being different than we see it right now. And I think that's a really important idea to zone in on. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, well, at this point, we're going to open it up to questions from our audience.
Hi, my name's Alexis, and I was wondering, so during the pandemic, it was obviously a difficult time for all of us. And so what were did you ever really question your career, and were there any new things that you tried were like, okay, it's not really working for me right now, so what can I do to keep myself going?
Yeah, oh man, let me tell you, I had 6 canceled contracts when the pandemic hit, and it was in one day, and there were emails, they hit, and I was just like, I was working so hard for all these things, and they just got taken away real quick. And I know y'all know what that feels like. So I knew I wanted to still dance, and I was gonna make it work, and I just didn't know how fast it was gonna happen. But what I did to deal with that grief of losing those things is I just had to remind myself that the research that I did to get ready for those performances is never gonna leave me. I have that knowledge still. Just because the performances didn't happen the way that I wanted them to doesn't mean that they're not gonna happen sometime in the future, and that I had to be patient with myself. And that not everything just happens so quickly, and this was a moment for us all to take a step back and reassess what we wanted. Yes, I know I saw several dancers that I used to dance with. They do not dance anymore. They're no longer interested. And then the ones that are still dancing are the ones that kept training in their living rooms. We took class from, the greatest part I think about the pandemic was being able to take class from anybody that, I mean, you would have to fly to New York to take from these people. You'd have to fly to Israel to take from these people. And I was grounded. I was an aerialist grounded because none of the gyms were open. I couldn't fly. And I just had to remember that it was gonna be okay. And then once I started getting opportunities again to perform and to start teaching aerial, I was totally out of shape. Like, I was out of dance shape. I was out of aerial shape. And that I had to have patience with myself because our bodies change depending on what we're doing. And if you're sitting a lot, you're gonna be really good at that. And if you're dancing a lot, you're gonna be really good at that. But also it kind of refreshed my desire to continue dancing. And I knew that that's what I wanted to continue doing. And I kept teaching at a college online throughout that. And I think it made mental health way more important in the classroom. I was checking in with them, like, how are y'all doing? What do you need today? You know, do you need me to stretch you? Do you want to talk? Because, you know, it put everybody in a very emotionally compromised situation when you were staying at home. And not everyone's at-home situation is great. And so having that be where you have to be, and sometimes school is where you go to escape that. And so I tried to be really cognizant about that kind of situation. And then for myself, I've been a barista for 15 years. Honestly, you're always gonna have to, like, being an artist, you're gonna either have to teach or you're gonna have to do something else, because the contracts never pay enough to buy a house, okay? So I think it's also important. I think it's also like what makes us extremely multidimensional humans, though, you know? So you have to be able to do a lot of things. And actually, if I was only dancing all the time, I think I would probably get bored of it, be like, okay, I'm doing the same thing. But if I bring in because I'm a very social human, so if like working at a coffee shop was great because I would see a whole bunch of people every day, you know, and then I would go and dance, and the people at the coffee shop want to know about my dance life, and then the people who I dance with want free coffee. Anyway, I don't know. Did I answer your question?
Yes, ma'am, you did. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
I just wanted to know, because you're a dancer and you're a performer, have you ever got jittery on stage, like whenever you're about to perform? How do you calm yourself down?
Okay, so yes, I definitely get performance anxiety on the side, but that just means I care a lot about the performance. If I know that when I don't get nervous, that there's something wrong. I'm like, I'm clearly not invested in this enough. I don't know if I can say this. Okay, so there is a thing that I do on the side of the stage, and it's shake out the JA. I'm not gonna tell you what JA means because I can't say it, but so basically I just wiggle my whole body, and I like shake, and I just get, you know, I just wiggle until those nerves kind of get like the thing that they needed, you know, and so that I can go out. But you know, once I'm on stage, I'm there. Yeah. Side of the stage, there's that moment where you're like, kind of feel like you got to pee and maybe vomit at the same time, and then you go out and you're fine, and then stuff happens on stage. Like I've been dropped from my partner on that, but I landed on my feet, and I had to cover it up. We were in Edinburgh at the Fringe Festival, and my partner dropped me early. He had climbed too high. We had a grip like this where we were supposed to have a grip like this. And so we're like this. I'm hanging from his hands. I'm inverted. I go to re-grip his hand. He was so sweaty that I just slipped off. And I landed on my feet like a cat, thank goodness. And I just had to improvise in the kind of dance that the rest of the people were doing to cover up the fact that I had just fallen. But, you know, if you mess up, it's all about your recovery. Don't just run off the stage. You have to just pick up where the rest of the group is and just get back in there. So yeah, we get nervous. Yes. But it means we care.
Means we care.
Yeah.
Yes,
Thank
indeed.
you so much.
Yeah.
Okay, hi, I'm Sophia, and I just wanted to ask, so I know you said that you meditate and you aerial dance, and I just was wondering how, or if your meditation can like help with like nerves from dancing or when you're about to go perform, or if it like helps you maybe like spiritually or to show like emotion while you're dancing.
I feel like meditation practice is not, it's not for the performer, it's for the person, right? So like me as a human, because there was a period of time when I was working 3 jobs and I was working 7 days a week. And that's wild. And I don't suggest that to anybody, but I really wanted a new car, so that's what I did. And I find that it's just to empty my mind, to calm it down, because I can be having, it's almost like there's a traffic jam in my head sometimes. And then I'm like, okay, release that car, release that car, release that, release it, and then there's a point where you get to have nothing in your mind once you get really good at it. It takes a while. It's not easy. It really isn't. It's why it's called a practice. It's not easy. And so then finally you get to a point where you can just be calm and you just think of like a really serene area that you would want to go on vacation. I think about being on the beach and all I'm thinking about is the waves coming in and the waves leaving, and it's very calming because then after I've meditated, I can decide what I let in my head again.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, I was just wondering, I have a similar question. How did your sort of emotional, spiritual journey help you put more emotional investment towards your work and sort of like your self-care?
Okay, so I honestly think the best performers have been through a lot in their lives because they have such a variation of experiences that they can pull from. And I think that it's important to have grace for yourself and know that just because you're going through something right now doesn't mean you're going to go through something forever, but there's always going to be things. And sorry, can you repeat your question one more time? I've lost track.
You're good. I was asking like how your spiritual, emotional journey has allowed you to put more emotional investment towards your work and yourself.
Absolutely. I'm constantly sifting through the emotional journey that I've had in my work. I generally am always making work about. It's very rare that I make like happy pieces, because I need my art so that I can digest what's happening in my life. And I think that's the best way I can explain it, is just you take what you've been through and you take all that hurt and you take the things that have happened and then you process it and then you show it to people so that they might feel like they're not alone in a situation and they might identify with you and feel something. And a lot of times, like when somebody watches the work that I make, I don't care if that's what I said it's gonna be. I just want them to have some kind of connection to it. And then if they have an emotional response, I ask them, so what, they're like, oh, I feel like it's like this thing that I went through and it might be completely opposite, but as long as they were able to identify and feel connected to another human through art is like my main goal, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, I appreciate it.
Hi, I'm Ava. When did you decide that an MFA was right for you?
Okay, yeah, this is good. When I first started taking dance at the community college, I was like, I want her job. Mm-hmm. I want to do that. And I actually changed my mind. I had gotten married and my ex-husband wanted me to be a nurse. And I started doing prerequisites for that. And all of my friends were like, are you kidding me? Like, who is this person? And I was like, well, he's just trying to do the thing, and like we're trying to do what's right for, our situation, but it was really what was right for him. Mm-hmm. And so when I realized that I didn't actually want to be a nurse and I was doing that to appease him, I was like, now I'm gonna go. It doesn't make sense for me to go back and do all my prerequisites again. I have a bachelor's of fine arts in dance. I might as well just keep going down this road because I love it, and this is what I always wanted. And that goal came back, and then I just did it. And I knew that I wanted to be a teacher. I knew I wanted to have the option to be a professor at a university. So that is why I went. But I also, when I was in my MFA, I became a much more articulate artist. Mm-hmm. And I was able to really focus in and identify on my mission and my statement, like my mission statements, like why I make art, what my teaching philosophies were, and just really refine everything that I was kind of jumbling around in my head. And I was like, I just do this, but can I describe it to someone? If I hand this paper to you, you're able to read what I do and why I do it. And that's what was actually the most important thing besides making a really phenomenal show. The most important thing was to be able to articulate.
Thank you.
I have a question about, like, over the pandemic. Do you feel like you were better before the pandemic, or do you feel like you improved, like, after, or now? Do you feel like you've improved now?
Well, It depends on what you consider better. I think that I am more careful about my body now than I was before the pandemic. I care about myself more now than before. I'm not willing to just throw myself into weird situations that I'm not comfortable with now. I was more of a people pleaser before, and then after I spent a lot of time with myself, and investing in actually loving myself and caring for myself, because I'm gonna be with myself for the rest of my life, and I'm the only one that is guaranteed to be there for myself. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I think now I'm still performing. The last performance I did was in April, and that was in like a non-traditional setting. I did a lyra piece, and then I performed on stage. And you know, the funny thing about dance is, like, you never really know how you're doing until you watch yourself on camera. You're like, oh yeah, I did amazing. And you like see yourself on camera, you're like, oh wow. But I mean, I got a lot of compliments from people, and they were like really here for it. Did I feel super confident? Yeah, I was ready. I was ready for my performances, which is why rehearsing is so important. But I think I'm like shifting away from performing as much and like really focusing in on being a good teacher and human for the people that I teach. Yeah.
I have one more question.
Okay.
Do you know what school, like, I don't know if I want to go to a dance school or just experience regular college. Like, what would you prefer to do?
Well, if you don't really know, I'm always a fan of minoring or double majors. So if you're like, I like dance and I want to dance, the cool thing about college is you're going to get really good experiences in dance, because they have the theater, the setup, you know, the teacher, they have all that stuff. So if you have an interest, I would just make sure that there is at least a minor in dance wherever you're going. Unless you're like, no, I really want to pursue this, then you want to go the major route. But I've known several people that will double major in like kinesiology or in dance, because they're really interested in the body, but maybe they're going to be a physical therapist, or you know, they continue doing prerequisites for something else just in case they do decide they change their mind, because you change your mind a lot. And I wouldn't discount community colleges either, because our community colleges in Arizona are really great, and you're not going to go into debt as much if you decide that you want to switch your major.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like the college system, sometimes you have to like pick right before you get there, and then you're like, okay, this is it, right? But I'm a fan of like tasting the palette of what they have, because you never know. You might end up getting introduced to a professor that like really fires you up for it. And then you're like, yes, I do want this for myself. But you always have to be like very cognizant of what you truly want and not what other people want for you.
And I'm going to add on to that too. I think that there's great value in understanding that when you decide to become an artist professionally, you're also running a business, right? So everything that happens in a business, you're going to have to do, right? You'll have to do your accounting. There'll have to be marketing and advertising work done. And the list goes on, right? So think about what of those other tasks do you want to learn how to do yourself? And what are you willing to pay someone else to do for you, right? What budget do you have to work with? So when you start to think about that, right? What part of my business do I want to know how to do? What part of my business am I going to pay someone else to do? Because we can't, just assume we're going to have friends that are willing to kind of pick up the slack and do my social media for me and all that kind of stuff, right? Sometimes that can be a way to find a school, because if you know, well, I want to have this study of kinesiology and dance. Well, not every school offers that, right? There's only certain schools where you can do both. If you decide you want to be an accounting major so that you can manage all of the finances of your business and dance, you have to find a school where you can do both of those things. So think about it. You don't have a fallback plan. You don't have like a second choice. You are enhancing your skills as a professional artist running your own business. And let that maybe help you make some of those decisions too.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
What was your favorite dance to perform, and why?
Oh. Oh, there's so many. I can't say it was the performance like piece,
Yeah.
like or like work or like
Like the
dance
whole
company.
dance put together.
Okay. I would probably say it was my thesis because I was in charge and I was making other people do stuff and it was great. And they all wanted to do it and they were all very excited about being there and it made me feel very special to be able to provide that kind of opportunity that no one's ever had at ASU to this group of students. And then I got to perform a little bit during it. And then most of the performance was on them. But also, I danced with this company called Halo Movement Collective in Phoenix, and they do this. He is the artistic director, designs costumes, he does the social media, he does film, he does choreography, and set design. He does everything for his company. He is an extremely talented person. And we did this piece called Savage Beauty, where it was like a runway show. And it was just really fun to do because I had, a total beat face. I don't know if you know what that means, but like completely contoured, huge lashes, a long hair extension that went all the way down to my hips. And it was just really fun to have be in a fashion show that was dance at the same time. I don't know, I can't have a favorite. There's so many performances I've done, but they all have their special little places in my heart.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi. So my question is, what is the biggest goal you would like to achieve within your dancing?
Oh man, I feel like I've done a lot of things that I set out to do already, which is why I'm like, what do I do now? I set a goal of getting a master's degree, and I did that in 2020, and then I set a goal of being a dance professor, and I was teaching at a college, and now I want to get aerial in a high school program. So that's or a college program. That's kind of what I'm working towards right now. When I get back from here, I'm starting with this really great, so I teach at Flagstaff Arts and Leadership Academy in Flagstaff, and they are interested in doing a program potentially to have aerial in there as one of their dance classes. So we're gonna see if that happens, but in the process, I'm actually going to be training and teaching at Momentum Aerial, which is the big major gym there, and they have a very, very methodical training program, which I'm really excited about learning about. So I think I'm because I've performed internationally and I've toured and I've done a lot of really cool stuff, that's usually what people aim out to do, right? And so now I'm like, I've done that, what's gonna make me happy? And that's, I feel like, continuing to teach and sharing the joy of art with the next generation of people.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Let's thank Ms. Reed for being with us today. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we hope that you will be with us next time for our next Art Strong episode, where we meet another guest artist with a passion for the next generation.